Lord of the Flies begins with a plane crash. War was coming and islands were being evacuated, thus how an island is filled with British boys from boarding school. How else does that happen? Despite the fact that there were adults on the plane, they inconveniently died in the crash. Ralph and Piggy are the first to meet each other. Piggy finds a shell and suggests that Ralph blow in it, sort of as a summoning call, and in response to this, boys come from seemingly everywhere. They hold a meeting and decide that Ralph should be the leader. They establish that a fire must be built for rescue purposes and always be going. They also decide that they need to build shelters and have hunters. Choir boys become hunters and start killing pigs with spears they've made. A beast is seen by some little ones or small children, and this leads to nightmares. Jack, the leader of the hunters, and Ralph get into a debate between who should lead when problems arise. When Ralph refuses to step down from his position, Jack takes all the other people and goes to the opposite side of the island with promises of meat and fun, while Jack is worried about survival. Insanity has been sprinkling its way throughout the book in the minds of the children, but this is where it shows that insanity is deeply invested in the mind of a boy named Simon, who believes that this pig is talking to him and is his master somehow and telling him what to do. The boys become completely desensitized to their sense of humanity, and they forget who they are and what they stand for, and murder becomes nothing. The sow fell, and the hunters hurled themselves at her. This dreadful eruption from an unknown world made her frantic. She squealed and bucked, and the air was full of sweat, and noise, and blood, and terror. The sow collapsed under them. They were heavy and fulfilled upon her. The butterflies still danced, preoccupied, in the center of the clearing. How often do we hear the screams of others, and the pain and the agony therein, and we see it, and we turn a blind eye because we're too preoccupied. We don't have time. This scene is brutal in the way that they take over this animal. It's not necessarily that they are taking over the animal, they're doing that for food, but how they do it is despicable. When they lose their sense of order, they lose their sense of compassion, of remote decency, and this is all just some sick game to them that they laugh and reenact. He discovered that with a little fall of the heart, these were the conditions he took as normal now, and that he did not mind. At this point in the book where we're introduced to the beast that the children start speaking of, it's never really made clear if the beast is actually real, or if it's just a figment of their imagination, or if they're starting to lose control of their minds, and their minds are taking over. The flies were black and iridescent green and without number, and in front of Simon, the Lord of the Flies hung on his stick and grinned. At this point in the book, there is a strong resemblance between the impaled pigskin and another character in the book, and he's been bullied throughout the entire book, and they tell him to shut up, and no one listens to his ideas, despite the fact that he's a seriously good survivalist, and he could help them, and there could be a lot of instances where they're saved if they would listen to him. So, we read The Lord of the Flies, and I really liked the sharp contrast between a lot of the characters and the symbolism that was in it.
I really like the symbolism and the description of the characters.
I really liked how the plot was all set up and all of the details that it used.
I like how the book was different than other books nowadays, and it actually had meaning to it, and it wasn't just a story.
Overall, I think it was a really good book, and I would definitely suggest reading it, and the author had a lot of power when he wrote, and I'm not gonna lie, there was one time that I cried. Judge me, but that's okay.
Yeah, I really recommend this book to everybody. Likes things.
It's just not for the super fans.